What do you mean they refused? First contact. High Counselor Zixtal's translucent appendages fluttered in agitation, causing ripples of bioluminescent patterns to cascade across their crystalline form. That's not possible. Nobody refuses first contact. Assistant Diplomatic Coordinator Meep, a rather unfortunate name for a species that communicated primarily through interpretive dance, performed what could only be described as an anxious shuffle step. Well, sir, technically they didn't refuse first contact. They just left a strongly worded message in every known frequency and language telling us to, and I quote, "Kindly fuck right off back to whatever corner of space you came from, we're busy right now." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell into stunned silence. 3,000 years of successful diplomatic missions, peaceful integration of new species, and careful cultural exchange, all thrown into chaos by one backwater civilization that couldn't even be bothered to follow the proper protocols for telling someone to go away. Did they at least fill out Form X-742B for declining diplomatic relations? Asked Undersecretary Plon, their 17 eyes blinking in sequence. Meep's dance became even more erratic. They sent us a GIF. A what? It's a short repeating visual sequence. This one appears to show something called a cat's, making a rather rude gesture with its appendage while knocking various objects off a raised surface. High Counselor Zixtal's crystalline structure briefly flickered to a shade of puce that hadn't been seen in official proceedings since the Great Snack Food Incident of 2847. Show me. The central holographic display activated, and there it was. A small furry creature staring directly into the camera, while slowly, deliberately, pushing a cup off a table. The text below read no in every major galactic script. Perhaps, ventured fourth speaker, for the collective consciousness of the void, or Bob, as they preferred to be called, we should review exactly how this situation came about. When did we first attempt contact? Meep pulled up the relevant data streams with a particularly elegant pirouette. Standard procedure, sir. We detected their primitive radio broadcasts approximately 50 of their solar cycles ago. We monitored their development, noted their achievement of rudimentary space travel, and when they established their first permanent settlement on their singular natural satellite, we initiated the standard welcome package. And? They used it for target practice. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. The welcome package was a masterpiece of diplomatic engineering. A self-replicating crystalline structure containing the combined knowledge and greetings of over 10,000 species, complete with complimentary snacks and a coupon for 20% off their first interstellar trade agreement. Surely there must be some mistake, said Undersecretary Plon. Perhaps they didn't recognize it as a peaceful gesture. Oh, they recognized it all right. Meep's dancing took on a distinctly sarcastic tone. They broadcast the entire thing, called it Shooting Space Spam, Episode 1, and turned it into some sort of entertainment program. The ratings were apparently quite good. High Counselor Zixtal began to vibrate at a frequency that made several of the more sensitive species in the chamber feel slightly nauseated. This is unprecedented. We need to understand their reasoning. Has anyone managed to make any sense of their civilization? Well, Meep's dance became hesitant, almost embarrassed. We've been studying their public broadcasts and information networks. They're interesting. Define interesting. They appear to be simultaneously preparing for both their own extinction and galactic domination. They create detailed simulations of every possible way they could be destroyed, then develop countermeasures, while also producing entertainment about how they would theoretically defeat various alien species. They call it science fiction, but our analysts suggest it's more like military planning disguised as entertainment. That's concerning, Bob contributed, their void-like form rippling thoughtfully. Any other observations? They seem to operate on a principle they call spite. Many of their greatest achievements appear to have been motivated primarily by a desire to prove others wrong. They've turned their most devastating weapons into sources of power. They regularly jump out of perfectly functional atmospheric vehicles for entertainment, and they've developed something called social media, which appears to be a form of self-inflicted psychological warfare. The chamber erupted into worried murmurs and concerned interpretive gestures. But surely they must want something from us, Zixtal pressed. Every species wants something. Meep executed a particularly complex series of moves that in their species' dance language translated roughly to, well, actually, this is where it gets really weird. We sent them a comprehensive list of what the Galactic Council could offer, advanced technology, medical knowledge, FTL travel capabilities, the secret to eternal life. And they sent back another GIF. This one showed something called a honey badger with the text, "Thanks but no thanks fam, we got this." They declined eternal life? Undersecretary Plan's eyes began blinking out of sequence, a sure sign of extreme distress. They said, and I quote, "Sounds boring, we'll figure it out ourselves." They then proceeded to transmit what appears to be thousands of hours of entertainment media featuring their own speculative versions of these technologies, along with detailed critiques of why our versions are, in their words, not rad enough. High Counselor Zixtal's crystal structure began to develop hairline fractures. Are they insane? Our xenopsychologists are divided on that question, Meep admitted. Half think they're operating on a level of chaos we simply can't comprehend, while the other half have requested career changes after reviewing their historical records. There must be something we can do, Bob insisted. No species can truly want to be left completely alone. It goes against every principle of cosmic harmony. Well, Meep's dancing became almost sheepish. They did make one request. Yes, what is it? Whatever it is, we'll grant it. Zixtal's voice had taken on a slightly desperate edge. They asked if we could, and I quote, do something cool like blow up an uninhabited planet or something, so they could get it on video. The silence that followed was profound enough to qualify as a new form of meditation in several member species cultures. Perhaps, Bob finally suggested, their void form condensing slightly. We should consider implementing a new diplomatic category. Something along the lines of species to be contacted only after they sort themselves out. Agreed, said Zixtal, who had begun to develop stress fractures in their stress fractures. All in favor? The vote was unanimous, aside from one junior member who abstained because they were too busy watching human cat videos on the galactic net. And so it was that humanity achieved the impossible. They became the first and only species to successfully ghost an entire galactic civilization. 3 solar cycles later, a small probe appeared at the edge of human space. It contained a single message. Hey, so we noticed you've started experimenting with dimensional folding. Just, please don't break causality. Also, here's our number if you change your mind about the whole leave us alone thing. P.S. Your cats are becoming quite popular among certain member species. Would you be interested in a cultural exchange program involving only cat videos? The humans' response was swift and characteristically unique. They sent back a video of their latest dimensional folding experiment, recorded in something they called TikTok format, set to something called dubstep, with the caption, "Watch this sick space drop, bro." The resulting temporal distortion created a small pocket universe that, according to human calculations, contained nothing but looping cat videos. They considered this an absolute win. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, had to create an entirely new department just to study human memes, as they had somehow become the galaxy's primary form of diplomatic currency. Nobody quite understood how this happened, least of all the humans, who were too busy trying to figure out how to drift a spacecraft through the rings of Saturn while playing something called Initial D music. In the end, humanity did eventually join the galactic community, not through careful diplomacy or cultural exchange, but because they overheard someone say it was impossible to speedrun first contact while doing a handstand. The resulting series of events involved 3 quantum paradoxes, a temporal loop that consisted entirely of dad jokes, and somehow ended with humanity accidentally becoming the galaxy's premier entertainment producers. The High Counselor's final report on the matter simply read, "I don't even know anymore. Just give them their own sector and hope they don't notice we're here." They noticed. They just thought it was funnier to pretend they didn't. They're doing what now? High Counselor Zixtal's crystalline structure vibrated with such intensity that 3 junior clerks had to be treated for sympathetic resonance. Meep, who had since been promoted to Chief of Human Understanding, a position that came with hazard pay and mandatory therapy, performed what could only be described as an interpretive breakdown. They're organizing what they call a galactic flash mob. We're still trying to understand the full implications, but apparently it involves coordinated dancing across multiple star systems. That doesn't sound so bad, ventured Bob, who had developed a peculiar fascination with human culture since the cat video incident. The dancing part isn't the issue. Meep's movements became increasingly frantic. It's the fact that they're using quantum entanglement to synchronize it. They've basically invented faster-than-light communication just so they can, and I quote, do the biggest synchronized Macarena in history. Undersecretary Plon, who had recently installed additional eyes specifically to keep track of human activities, blinked in a complex pattern that suggested both confusion and grudging admiration. At least they're not causing any temporal paradoxes this time? About that, Meep's dance took on a distinctly cringeworthy quality. They figured out how to make the dance loop through time. Something about maximizing audience participation across all possible timelines. The Department of Temporal Mechanics has submitted their third mass resignation letter this week. The council chamber, which had been recently renovated to be more aesthetically lit, a concept the humans had introduced that nobody quite understood, but everyone felt compelled to adopt, fell into what was becoming a familiar state of exasperated silence. Perhaps, suggested a new voice, we should focus on their more constructive contributions to galactic society? All attention turned to Ambassador Vkr'lak, representing the hive mind of Sector 7G, who had recently returned from a diplomatic mission to Earth. They had gone native, as evidenced by their wearing what appeared to be a Hawaiian shirt over their chitinous exoskeleton and something called a dad hat. Do elaborate, Zixtal said, trying to ignore the way Vkr'lak was attempting to open a beverage called a cold one with the boys, despite lacking both compatible anatomy and boys. Well, their approach to problem-solving, while unorthodox, has yielded some remarkable results. Take the infinite energy crisis in the Crab Nebula sector. Ah, yes. Bob's void form rippled nostalgically. They solved that by... what was their technical term? Yeeting a sun into it. Vkr'lak supplied helpfully. But the brilliant part wasn't the solution itself. It was the way they turned it into an extreme sports event. The Solar System X Games are now the highest-rated show in 17 sectors. And let's not forget their contribution to diplomatic relations, added Undersecretary Plon. Their invention of meme warfare has reduced violent conflicts by 73%. Though I'm still not entirely sure how they managed to end the 1,000-year war between the Silicon Consciousness and the Carbon Coalition with something called a Rick Roll, Zixtal admitted. Meep executed a particularly elegant spin that in their species' dance language meant, that's nothing compared to what they're planning next. The chamber collectively braced itself. They've submitted a proposal to the council. They want to organize something called a Galactic Eurovision. That doesn't sound too alarming, said Bob, who really should have known better by now. It's a competition where representatives from each species perform musical numbers. The humans are very excited about it. They keep talking about something called Space Australia and how they're going to send it. Send what? Asked Plon. We're not entirely sure, but they've already started construction on something they're calling the greatest stage in the universe, which appears to be a Dyson sphere designed specifically for acoustics. Vkr'lak chittered excitedly. Oh yeah, I heard about that. They're calling it Coachella 2.0, now with actual stars. The council members took a moment to process this information, a process that involved various species-specific expressions of disbelief, ranging from multiple eye-rolling to void condensation. You know, said Bob thoughtfully, I'm beginning to understand why their first response to contact was, we're busy. They genuinely were. Indeed, agreed Zixtal, though I'm still not sure if they're the most brilliant or the most insane species we've ever encountered. Oh, they're definitely both, said Vkr'lak, who had somehow acquired sunglasses despite the chamber being indoors and their species lacking traditional eyes. Last week, they taught my entire hive mind how to vibe. We still don't know what it means, but productivity is up 400%. At least they're contained to their own sector, Plon offered optimistically. Meep's dance became somehow both amused and terrified. About that. They've started what they call speed-running galactic exploration. They're turning it into a competition to see who can discover and befriend the most undiscovered species in the shortest time. They've already found 3 civilizations we didn't even know existed. How? Demanded Zixtal. Apparently, they just looked in the places that would be most hilarious to find advanced life. Their current champion found a Type 3 civilization hiding in what they called Space Florida. The council chamber erupted into chaos as various members tried to process this information while simultaneously dealing with the notification that humanity had just uploaded something called Top 10 Galactic Council Moments, Gone Wrong, Gone Quantum, to the Interstellar Network. I move that we create a new classification for humanity, Bob suggested over the din. Something beyond our traditional diplomatic categories. Agreed, said Zixtal, whose crystal structure had developed a permanent stress pattern that younger members of their species had started copying as a fashion statement. Any suggestions? Carax raised a claw. The humans have a perfect phrase for it. Built different. The motion passed unanimously, though several members abstained because they were too busy trying to learn something called the quantum shuffle. And somewhere in their sector, humanity continued their grand project of turning the entire galaxy into what they called the biggest party this side of the cosmic microwave background. They were succeeding, much to everyone's confusion and reluctant enjoyment. The latest report from the Department of Human Understanding contained only one line. They're not trapped in here with us. We're trapped in here with them, and somehow they've made it fun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called at what humans would consider 3 a.m. Galactic Standard Time, which was fitting because the situation had definite 3 a.m. energy, as humans would say. Before we begin, High Counselor Zixtal announced, their crystalline form displaying what had become known as the "here we go again" refraction pattern. I want to remind everyone that no, we cannot simply pretend this isn't happening. We tried that last time and somehow ended up with a quantum-entangled pizza delivery service. Meep, whose title had recently been upgraded to Supreme Interpreter of Human Shenanigans, the humans had insisted on the terminology, performed their species equivalent of a facepalm through dance. You're all wondering about the giant mechanical penguin in the room, aren't you? Actually, said Bob, whose void form had started showing traces of what appeared to be glitter. I was wondering about the actual giant mechanical penguin that humanity apparently built in room 3C of this very building. When did that get there? That's actually what this emergency session is about, Meep explained, their dance movements suggesting they were seriously considering a career change to something less stressful, like cosmic disaster management. Undersecretary Plan's 17 eyes blinked in perfect synchronization, a trick they'd learned from watching humans synchronized swimming videos. Do elaborate. Well, you know how we recently implemented that new rule requiring all species to file paperwork in triplicate before undertaking any major engineering projects? A collective groan echoed through the chamber. Everyone knew where this was going. The humans submitted their paperwork, all of it, for every project they've completed in the last 6 months. All at once, in triplicate, with annotated memes. That doesn't sound so bad, ventured Carax, who had since added a collection of vintage Earth fanny packs to their exoskeleton. They submitted it retroactively. Meep's dance became increasingly distressed. They invented temporal bureaucracy just to technically comply with regulations while simultaneously making fun of them. The Department of Temporal Affairs is still trying to figure out how they filed paperwork for projects that both have and haven't happened yet. But what does this have to do with the mechanical penguin? Asked Bob. Everything, Meep sighed through movement. It's their new transportation system. They call it the Sub-Etha Penguin Express. It's a network of giant mechanical penguins that... Yes? Prompted Zixtal, bracing for impact. That slide through artificially generated ice lanes between dimensions. They've basically turned the fabric of space-time into the world's biggest water park slide for penguins. Mechanical penguins. That deliver both people and packages, while playing something called Eurobeat. The council chamber erupted into its usual chaos, but with a noticeably different tone this time. Several members were trying to discreetly look up the Penguin Express's delivery radius on their personal devices. But is it safe? Asked Plan, while quietly adding themselves to the beta testing waitlist. That's the most infuriating part. Meep's dance took on a tone of bewildered admiration. It's literally the safest transportation system ever devised. They accidentally solved 3 of our longest-standing physics paradoxes just by asking, wouldn't it be funny if... Carax, who had clearly already used the service judging by the I Penguin Expressed and all I got was this lousy t-shirt shirt they were now wearing over their Hawaiian shirt, raised a claw. You haven't told them about the customer service system yet. Meep's dance became somehow even more exasperated. They trained an AI to respond to all customer service inquiries exclusively in penguin puns. It achieved sentience within 3 hours and now runs a comedy podcast. A what? Asked Bob. Don't ask, chorused several council members who had clearly become familiar with Earth media. But surely, Zixtal pressed, this must violate some regulation, some law of physics, some basic principle of sanity. Well, Meep performed the dance equivalent of nervous collar tugging. Technically, no. They filed all the proper paperwork, even if they did it through time itself. The physics actually works better than our current systems, And as for sanity, they trailed off into a brief shuffle that clearly communicated, "We gave up on that concept months ago." "Besides," added Carax, "have you seen the safety statistics? 0 accidents, 0 delays, 0 complaints, though we did have one incident where a penguin achieved enlightenment and started a philosophy school." "A penguin started a philosophy school?" Plon's eyes began blinking in random patterns of disbelief. "Oh yeah," Carax nodded enthusiastically. "It's actually quite popular. Their main thesis is that the meaning of life is to slide through it with style. They're calling it penguinism. My hive mind has already converted." The council chamber fell into what had become its standard state of human-induced existential contemplation. "You know what the worst part is?" Meep added after a moment. "They've somehow made it cool. Species that haven't updated their transportation systems in millennia are suddenly scrambling to install ice lanes. The Crystalline Collective is offering discount rates for any civilization willing to be part of what they're calling the South Pole to North Pole Express Network." "Wait," interrupted Bob, their void form showing signs of sudden realization. "Is that why I saw the hive mind of Sector 9 practicing what they called sick penguin slides in the quantum foam yesterday?" "Precisely," Meep confirmed. "Humanity has turned practical infrastructure into an extreme sport. Again. The qualifying rounds for the first Intergalactic Penguin Express Racing League start next week." "And let me guess," Zixtal ventured, their crystal structure showing signs of preemptive stress fractures. "They've already somehow turned it into a reality show?" "Keeping Up with the Penguins premieres tomorrow at prime time," Carax confirmed cheerfully. "I'm in episode 3. I win a dance-off against a quantum-entangled penguin." The council sat in silence for a long moment, processing this information. Finally, Zixtal spoke. "You know what? Add it to the list. Right under accidentally created a breakfast cereal that solves cold fusion, and taught a black hole to play jazz." "Which list is that?" asked a junior member who was clearly new. "The things humanity has done that we've stopped trying to understand and started just enjoying list," Bob explained. "It's our most popular publication. The humans keep trying to speedrun it." As if on cue, a mechanical penguin slid through what appeared to be a Lokalna-generated ice lane in the council chamber's wall, delivered a pizza that hadn't been ordered yet, but would be exactly what everyone wanted when they thought to order it, and disappeared through another dimension with a cheerful "Newt, Newt," and a bass drop. The council's official minutes recorded what followed as general resigned acceptance of the new penguin-based reality, though the unofficial minutes just showed a series of increasingly hysterical emoji. And somewhere in their sector, humanity was already working on their next project, tentatively titled Operation Space Dolphins. But that was tomorrow's emergency sessions problem. The Galactic Council's new meeting chamber, now featuring a retro-wave aesthetic complete with perpetual sunset and neon grid lines that humanity had insisted was absolutely essential for proper vibes, was unusually crowded. The reason for this overcrowding was floating in the center of the room, a holographic presentation titled Operation Space Dolphins, now with extra lasers. "I want to state for the record," High Counselor Zixtal began, their crystalline form now permanently displaying what had been dubbed the "Why Are Humans Like This" diffraction pattern, "that we did try to stop this." "To be fair," Meep interjected, their dance movements suggesting they had finally achieved Zen acceptance of chaos. "We didn't try very hard. Especially after they mentioned the part about solving dark matter." "I still don't understand," said Undersecretary Plon, whose eyes had been upgraded with RGB lighting because apparently that improved processing power. "How they managed to combine marine mammal intelligence, quantum computing, and interpretive dance into a unified field theory." "That's not even the most impressive part," added Carax, who had evolved beyond mere Earth fashion and was now somehow wearing multiple temporal versions of the same outfit simultaneously. "They've taught the dolphins to communicate in synthesizer noises. The dolphins insisted on it, said it was, and I quote, more aesthetically appropriate for space travel." Bob, whose void form had recently started spontaneously generating vapor waves, rippled thoughtfully. "Perhaps we should focus on the actual proposal before us?" "Yes, right." Meep performed a dance move that had recently become galactic shorthand for buckle up, it's about to get weird. "As you can see from the presentation, humanity has developed what they're calling the Dolphin-Assisted Quantum Navigation Network, or DAQNN, which they insist on pronouncing as Darkenin. Vkr'lak added helpfully. The system uses genetically enhanced, cybernetically augmented dolphins who swim through the quantum foam between dimensions, using echolocation to map out new hyperspace routes while simultaneously composing what they call sick beats. The beats are, in fact, sick, confirmed a junior council member who had been part of the beta testing group. Well, Meep's dance became increasingly amused. Remember the Serious Business Consortium of Sector 12? The ones who said they would never participate in human foolishness? Yes. They've just ordered a fleet of quantum-enabled water slides and hired a dolphin DJ for their next board meeting. Apparently their productivity is up 500% since they started conducting business meetings in zero-gravity wave pools. The dolphins are also offering certification courses, Vkr'lak added. You can now get a degree in quantum hydrodynamic engineering with a minor in synthetic wave theory. The graduation ceremony involves surfing through a temporal causality loop while a cybernetic dolphin performs a saxophone solo. The council chamber, which had somehow acquired a slight reverb effect perfect for dramatic announcements, fell into what had become its standard state of bemused acceptance. Add it to the list, Zixtal finally said. Right under convinced a supermassive black hole to become a subwoofer, and accidentally created a faster-than-light postal service through interpretive dance. Which reminds me, Bob added, their void form now sporting a subtle vaporwave pattern. Has anyone else noticed that all our official documents are now being delivered by dolphins wearing sunglasses? Those are the express couriers, Vkr'lak explained. Regular mail still goes through the Penguin network, though I heard they're working on a joint venture. Something about maximizing radical delivery potential through sick aquatic moves. As if to punctuate this statement, a dolphin phased through the quantum foam of reality, performed a perfect backflip while delivering a stack of interdimensional permits, all filed in triplicate and set to synthwave, and disappeared with a flash of neon light and what sounded suspiciously like the opening notes of Careless Whisper played on a quantum saxophone. The council's official minutes recorded the rest of the session as general acceptance of the new aquatic-based reality, with a side note about installing more water features in the council chamber. The unofficial minutes consisted entirely of dolphin emojis and saxophone notation, and somewhere in their sector, humanity was already working on their next project, codenamed Operation Space Cats. But that was a crisis for another day, preferably one with a better soundtrack. To be continued, probably with more saxophones.